Hello and welcome to Move the Line. Draft day is upon us. Mock drafts are submitted, pencils down, though we still have opportunities to take advantage of the betting market. I know these gentlemen were both up late, as was I, trying to parse through news, noise, bets, final mock submissions. Connor, what's going on, buddy?
Yeah, not much. Turned on little draft day action in the back. It's like a yearly routine. Finalized my mock draft. Horrible movie, but I love it. It's just like, a guilty pleasure to watch it. And it was great. Finalized the mock draft and feeling, fine, I would say. Feel good about our positions. Very much fine about the mock draft.
Yeah, I had to find the Bill Burr clip from years ago. I had to soak in that clip last night. That made me feel really bad about myself, spending all this time basically, going to a graduation that I don't know anybody involved, which is the great Bill Burr clip. If you've not seen it, I tweeted it out this morning. It's fantastic. It makes you feel real bad about spending a ton of time sweating, handicapping, and watching the draft. Fantastic content. Scott, what's going on with you, buddy? How are we doing?
Getting my phone blown up from random people and friends of friends about what to bet. So, who's going here? Arante Ursary getting drafted 9 to the Saints. It's just all over the place this morning.
Yeah, it's busy. So I'm sure you guys, if you're hanging out with us this morning, we appreciate it. Jump in the chat. Let us know what you're thinking about, what questions we can answer for you. We got a good deal of those yesterday. I thought made for fun back end of the show. So any questions you have, let us know. Bets, mocks, your team, news, noise, all that different stuff. Connor, what was the biggest sticking point for you last night in terms of submitting the final mock draft, wrestling with what that looks like, all the news that we've taken in, obviously, in the last 3-4 months. And then obviously that ramps up here pretty drastically in the last 3-4 days.
Yeah, I would say it's at like 6 and 7 here because I feel reasonably good about the top 5. I think there could be a trade in the top 5, which we can talk about here, pretty quickly because the odds on the Bears to take Jeanty now up to -180 on FanDuel. I mean, there's been some rumblings about it for the last, 24, 48 hours. Dilla tweeted something out about it, who's had some good Jag stuff in the past. He was with us on the whole Trayvon Walker thing, way back when. But I think either way, Jeanty probably goes number 5. And then so for me, it was tough. Do the Raiders, there's been a lot of Kelvin Banks steam at 6, connecting Steve Sarkisian and Pete Carroll. And with Colton Miller's contract, maybe they prefer Banks. He's a little bit more versatile too. He doesn't have to play left tackle right away. He could play somewhere else. So a lot of dot connecting there. But I think most of the big mock drafters, a lot of them switched to Banks over Membu. Charlie Campbell's still sticking with Membu. I put Banks, but I think there's a little bit of fallout there because I'm pretty sure the Jets like Banks more than Membu too. So I was stuck between Warren and Membu at 7. And so I went back and forth on it 10 times. And then, it got to the point, it was like a Vontae Mack no matter what, point in the movie and draft day. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to put Membu in there. I think it's still viable. O-line's a more premium position. They're just going to go that direction. So that was what I wrestled with for way too long last night, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a tough one for sure. I mean, we had heard internally some stuff that we're involved in, groups that we're in, had heard a little bit of the Banks stuff a few days ago. So from a different source and different relationships. And when we started to get some of that Banks team yesterday, that made me feel pretty good about that because I agree that was a tough one to parse through here. Scott, same question.
Yeah, I kind of had a little bit of the same issue for me. I went Banks 6. We've been talking about Banks since he was at over under 18.5, and then when it bounced down to 13.5 and hammered it a little bit then. But I just think it comes down to the versatility of Kelvin Banks. I think the other thing you look at throughout the process is sometimes you have to go back to where your evaluations were at going into the combine. And the combine performance of Armand Membu is one of the things that shot him way up. Even though a lot of teams think he's just strictly a right tackle. That's what it came down to for me. If you're going to slot him in the top 10, I think that makes more sense to the Jets. Although, the thing that I've heard is it's Tyler Warren, Kelvin Banks, and Armand Membu in that order for the Jets. So for me, my mock draft, I ended up with Membu as fallen outside of the top 10 because I went Warren, but I think it's a good argument. We've had it before. It makes a little bit more sense for me if I was a GM to go ahead and fill that right tackle spot and then shoot for tight end in the second round. But that's where it was. The other thing that I had is this whole Shedeur Sanders situation. I just don't think he's a fit for the Giants. I tend to think, and you're getting a lot of information that he is a fit for Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh likes Jackson Dart. I don't know if Pittsburgh will end up with Jackson Dart, but I think Pittsburgh has some other issues with not having second round pick and some other things. So I could kind of see them moving down. So I don't have Shedeur Sanders in the first round of my mock. I think there's some real issues there. I think teams are going to be weary of the whole Dion, lingering in the background. If anything goes wrong, just look at what's going on with LeBron and his kid, like in the NBA. And I think Dion got just as big, if not a bigger, because he can come in here and end up possibly being a coach one day for any of these teams. So I don't think it fits for the Giants. I think Pittsburgh has a few other things with Aaron Rodgers to fall back on. And from what I hear, Cleveland's sitting right now at 34 or 33, wherever they're 33, in the second round. So it's going to be interesting, but I don't have Shedeur. So that's where I was at last night.
Connor, where did you land on Shedeur? Did you have him in?
No.
Okay.
No. I went with one quarterback, Cam Ward one, no one else in. I think someone probably sneaks in. I'm kind of getting the vibe the Steelers don't take a quarterback. Again, I just continue to hear like three different things, three different, tons of different people. It's like just every different quarterback they think is a lock there. And again, I retired bet from the quarterback market of betting, so I've just not bet it. And I left it alone in my mock. Like I think one of them could probably sneak in. Like a team trading up makes sense. Into the first round. I don't know. I just to me, I couldn't find a spot for it, and I left a couple guys out of the first round that I think I probably should have been put in, even with leaving the quarterbacks out. So, yeah, I didn't have anyone in there.
Yeah, that was a tricky spot for sure. I did the trade that I was talking about. I put him in at 24 to Cleveland, had the Vikings trading out of the first round, and had Cleveland trading back in. At 33 to 24 is not a huge jump in terms of just raw draft capital before we start. Cleveland technically has the second most. They got a good amount of picks. There's a relationship there with, Kwesi and Barry and, previously working there together, and all the ties that we had to Cleveland from the jump of why we thought Shedeur was a viable pick in number 2, if they deemed the quarterback was the play, are still there. And obviously, again, connecting your, the Colorado teammates, I think could be a pretty interesting choice there for the organization. So that was a tricky one. Matthew Golden was hard for me. I was telling you guys before we got started, I wanted to hold strong on some Tet stuff, and Tet being first receiver, Tet being kind of the, again, the astronaut meme that it was, Tet all along. And then he really struggled to find a spot for Golden. So Golden all the way down to 18, you've heard some talk about the Rams maybe would want to be interested in Golden there. It's really hard to find a spot for receiver. He doesn't feel like a Packers prospect to me necessarily. Like I think we thought that, Tet could be. Did you end up with Tet 23 to the Packers, Connor?
Yep.
Okay.
But
where did you end up with Tet, Scott? Shall I come back to you, Connor? Sorry.
So we talked about the trade, and as soon as we got off yesterday, I was kind of hitting you up in the DMs, asking what you thought. But I made the trade. I have Chicago going up to 5 for Jeanty, and I have the Jaguars taking Tet McMillan at 10.
Okay. That feels pretty good this morning, based off of some stuff that we may be hearing. There's some, Tet movement in the markets there too. Connor, before I interrupted you were going to say something else.
No, I was going to say, the whole trade, I do believe that the Jags trading down from 5 to 10 would mean Tet 10. So I didn't have that trade, but if I did have that trade, probably would have had Tet 10th instead. So especially because I had Graham going 8th. It's over Jalen Walker. I know that was another sticking point for us too, was Jalen Walker versus Graham. Scott, another thing, I think you wound up with Walker. Noonan, what did you do at 8?
I went Graham.
You went Graham? Okay.
Yeah.
I think some people have flipped. I think Norris flipped. A couple other people flipped to Graham as well. I don't know, some questions about his size and, just a couple of different questions there, I think. There's plenty of questions about Graham too. So I don't know. I think at this point it's probably 50-50 to be honest, but I think the group feels the same here. I don't know, Scott, did you end up feeling strongly about Walker? Or it was kind of just like, I think it makes the most sense because it's been there for a while. And
I
you know.
felt two ways. One, I feel like you've heard nothing but positive things connecting Jalen Walker to Carolina. I would be absolutely pissed at myself if I moved off of the Walker pick last second and he's still the pick. But I think there's other outs there. Carolina is a team that you've talked, that this has been mentioned about wanting to move down. And I think with Mason Graham possibly sliding, I think you could have a team move up. I think the situation, San Francisco's got a lot of picks. I could see San Francisco moving to 8 and taking Mason Graham, and I could see, Carolina moving back a few picks and still getting Jalen Walker. So I stuck. I have Mason Graham at 11. I have Jalen Walker at 8. So that's kind of where I ended up. I had a little bit of a struggle with Mason Graham versus Walter Nolan at 11. That was kind of an issue. So that's kind of where I landed with those guys.
We all are on a island in a sense. We are all on the Tyler Booker 9 to the Saints island. It's lonely, but I got my 2 friends with me there.
I think Daigle jumped on with us.
Yeah,
okay,
he's riding SS Booker. Yeah.
Okay.
So
all
we
right.
we can set the deck chairs on the Titanic and all go down together.
Nice. Daigle will be there last and tell us he was there first. So that makes for a good story time for the 3 of us, 4 of us to be there together. So again, unique spot. I think, again, personally, offensive line to the Saints would be, a massive win for my betting portfolio because, again, we took advantage of some market inefficiencies when we felt like pretty early that quarterback to the Saints wasn't happening at 9, and the market shifted pretty drastically with the Derek Carr news. So we'll see what happens there. Good questions in the chat. Playable number for Tet at 10. There were some 7s out there this morning. I think we're at like 354.
354. That's
still not bad, to be honest.
I don't know. I don't know if I would play that. Would you play that? You're in like, okay. So hypothetically, Warren versus Tet. Do they go Tet? I mean,
I made the pick of Warren. I think Warren makes a ton of sense. I mean, those are 2 guys for sure that, that I've been in on. So I'm not surprised that that we're here, that it's, Warren or Tet. We're getting, I think, some reliable sourced stuff on the reporting that it would be Tet if they were to make the trade that I feel pretty good about. Would love to see that from maybe some, national beats or anything like that. But, I grabbed some 7. I have variations of, top 10 that are kind of already covering it. So I'm not trying to go super crazy. Feel much better if it was a Warren, but, I don't know if you don't have any of it. I don't hate 350 4 to 1 if no one has any of it based off of where we're trending now.
I had a 20 to 1 in my bet slip the other day, and I just, like a fish, didn't finalize it. I thought about it, and I was like, nah, yeah, looking bad right now. But I did find, I was going through all my bets for this year, which, up to way too many. I found, because we were on this show, I found a Kelvin Banks to go 6th overall at 35 to 1 that I bet live during this show.
Nice.
So obviously hindsight should have bet more. I think him and Membu are like co-favorites right now, depending on the site. But yeah, that would be a good hit. It's Kelvin Banks season. Kelvin Banks will make or break this draft, I think, for me.
Okay.
The Booker stuff's all long. The Booker stuff is all like, really long. So it's not a big risk, massive upside.
Right.
And I stand by where we're at. I think just came out 30 minutes ago. You had someone talking about how Jackson Dart's going to go 9 again after we already went through this whole carousel of it's not going to be a quarterback and it's not going to be Tyler Warren. It's not going to be Jeanty. It's going to be offensive line. But no one's going to be there, but it's still going to be offensive line, which is kind of partially how we arrived at Booker. I know Chernoff shouted out on his stream and in his Discord as well. Someone was trying to get like 20K Phil at ProfitX on Booker recently. So we're not alone. There's other people out there who think about us. We're just maybe the only people publicly, putting him in our mock drafts at 9.
Yeah, one of the things to kind of hit on with Booker, we got the information like days ago. I tried to get direct confirmation from some people down here in New Orleans. That didn't necessarily happen, but we saw other peripheral things start popping up from a few other places like outside of this area, along with some money getting pushed on it heavily. And the thing that makes me really comfortable with it is from Nick Underhill, from a number of other places, you've heard these non-consensus top 3 offensive linemen, whether it be Connerly, whether it be some of these other guys, all getting linked here to New Orleans. And so for us to land on Booker as being the right guy, and what I'm hearing this morning is that the Saints are looking to trade down a few spots. There's some teams that are interested in Mason Graham, some teams that are interested in possibly Jalen Walker. I think Booker is very much in play, especially when you start looking at Kelvin Banks, Tyler Warren, those guys in my mock draft at least being off the board. I think the Saints would be live with Booker at 9, and I think the Saints would be live if they trade back a few spots for Booker.
Yeah. Mickey Loomis doing the thing that we called him out for never doing, trading back. But again, this is one of those things where touched on so many teams are wanting to trade back. Connor made the reference that like every team from, New England to Chicago is at some point looking to, trade back. It kind of speaks to the nature of this draft. I think it's going to be even crazier than we think, right? So like the perception of like Dell in the chat, like Booker is a reach. Sure. But part of it is that there's like a handful of positions that have a ton of depth. Defensive line, both edge and interior, offensive line. Some of these guys are swing guys that could play. Maybe they don't think that they're going to be an actual left tackle and they have to kick to the right side or they have to kick to a guard. And what happens is you get these individual team depth charts or big boards that look very different. So our perception of where you think Booker should go, because you saw multiple mocks 3 weeks ago had him in the 20s versus where he is now, it's all very subjective to the team. And at this point, we're kind of mocking Membo's off the board, Banks is off the board, Campbell's off the board. This is a team that's prioritized offensive line. There's not a lot left. This is how you get the Connerlys, whatever, the Minnesota kid, like all these kids, suddenly are going to go inside the top 10. It's because the team is deemed offensive line to be their need. So yeah, I think it's going to be chaos. I think actually because of that, you're going to have more trades than maybe normal. To be honest, the more I'm thinking about the way teams are jockeying based off of their own boards. Jim in the chat mentions reports say Jags are trying to move up to 2. I mean, literally every single team should be trying to call the top 3 teams to see if they can get in, right? We know that Tennessee's not taking calls anymore. There are 2 blue chip prospects. Everyone should pick up the phone to see if they can get in the mix, see if they can kind of just poke around. And if not, you're failing at your job as a front office and general manager. So I don't think there's a lot of necessarily steam that we should be considering in terms of Jacksonville picking up the call, doing their due diligence to just say, any interest. We would love one of the blue chippers. So I wouldn't worry too much about anything like that.
I mean, Andrew Berry's not trading away Shohei Ohtani. That's the reality.
Yeah.
I think, my only regret is that we didn't bet more on Travis Hunter when it was uncertain, I know I played a little bit, 13-1. And this is, again, a good reminder for us next season. When things are still uncertain early on, like Schefter tweets out about Abdul Carter starting to be the favorite. Travis Hunter is 13-1. Shedeur Sanders is like 7-1 at the time. And they were both all in the mix prior. Obviously, Hunter one looks way better, but I think it could have gone either way. I still think that playing both of them is the right decision. So yeah, it's crazy odds there. And Hunter is basically, I think the top 4 are basically just locked. I keep seeing there's a bet on Bet365, by the way. If you bet 365, they have the top 4 exact, only minus 250 of Ward, Hunter, Carter, Campbell. I'm not buying any Pats, Jeanty, Pats, Walker. They're picking Will Campbell. I feel very, very, very strongly about that. So yeah, minus 250 is 200 short of the market right now on Campbell.
Yeah. And, again, New England would love to move down, but that's the toughest spot, I think, to trade in the entire draft, because you have to give, I guess, the most to get up that high. It forces New England down to probably a range they don't want to go to. Ryan in the chat mentions too, the Giants, Mars changed directions last minute and grabbed Dart at 3. Will obviously change everything. Again, references the Dart to 9 whispers. Look, I made the reference yesterday. I put it in my mock this morning. The only real wrinkle that I think is possible inside that top 4 is the Giants, simply because of the ownership group, simply maybe getting involved and just being yeah, you both are on the hot seat, and we want a quarterback of the future. We know that, Russ is not that. The Jameis Winston deal is very, very team friendly, where you're not like, hey, you can't take another quarterback. So, doing that at 3 seems really aggressive, considering, just reading the market and having a better understanding of that. But these rich owners kind of call the shots. We saw this years ago, and we felt like the CJ Stroud stuff was, pretty locked in from what we were hearing at, at pick 1 with Carolina, and then, ownership gets involved and things change. So I don't feel like that's happening. I still kind of with the guys here. I think if the Giants do acquire a first round quarterback, it is after acquiring one of the blue chippers in the draft at 3, Abdul Carter. So
no, that's a great point. I think that's that's a fantastic point. I want to say though, I got sent a tweet here from, someone on our Discord from Jane Slater saying, throwing you a possibility, hearing a few teams and agents today, O-line for Saints at 9. As one put it, like Oregon there. So she mentioned Josh Connerly. If Banks and Membu go, they might panic. And like remember they might they're a team that wants to build from the inside out. Said that they're not having much luck trying to trade down right now. I mean, this is exactly what we said. It's not, I mean, I don't blame you. If you want to throw, it's like 100 to 1 on Connerly. If you want to throw a little bit of Connerly, sure. Maybe we're wrong there, but I think the sourcing here on like kind of directionally what's happening makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I have a Connerly ticket. It's not 100, so maybe I need to get more.
What is it at? Maybe I made that up. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to cite fake lines, but I'm pretty sure I thought it was really long.
I have a 49 on Connerly. But same premise, right? Like swimming the same uncertainty and just the Saints wanting to get an offensive lineman and trying to, pinpoint the guy. But I still think like it's like 2 to 1. Maybe it moves considerably because there was a lot of consensus on it moving to, Michael, Williams, and that being kind of the chalk. So maybe we get better prices on Saints offensive line, but that was pretty good a couple weeks ago. So let's see. Yeah. Dart now second quarterback in the marketplace because of this news, which is pretty fascinating. Jeff, do you believe that the Bears trade to 4 rumors to take Jeanty? No, I believe the Bears trade to 5 rumors for Jeanty. You need to get off of Nesson and get into some of the national stuff, Jeff. You're just you listen to the Boston stuff specifically. Of course, Pats would love to trade 4 and back up, but I don't think that's happening.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Jacob said we're at the 101 at. Yeah, I misspoke. It was 100 to 1. It looks like 3 days ago, which might as well be a year ago in draft time. So now we're looking at 19 to 1. I mean, hey, it's worst bets have been made. I'm probably not going to make it. I'm already in pretty deep, but yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. Considering that Saints to go old line was like plus 950 on FanDuel not that long ago. Now we're, it's getting pretty rich for specific players, which is crazy.
Last night you were still able to get good numbers on the Saints because they still had Mikael Williams plus 350, plus 400-ish spots. So
yeah. I mean, it's still not bad. I mean, what's Saints to go offensive line? I think is still like 3 to 1 or so.
Like 2 to 1, I think is like best. Okay. Or well, maybe I don't know. It's like 2 to 1-ish. I think a little bit higher. But they pulled it. Someone mentioned that in the chat. They pulled it on DraftKings and FanDuel and Bet365. Just Saints entire position thing.
Jacksonville entire position thing is not up, which is annoying. But that's not up because I think that could be a way to get back into the Tet stuff if that comes back. Jags to go receiver is maybe a way to go. So we see here. Anything else, Scott, that you want to touch on in terms of the mock that you struggled on? Then I'm going to knock into some questions or anything you're thinking today. Any way you want to take it?
Yeah, I mean, I hit on the Giants taking Jackson Dart and him going as a second quarterback. That was the conclusion I came to last night. I have him as a trade back to think Buffalo, trading slightly out, and I think Washington might be more of a area for them to trade in, and Minnesota certainly as well. I ended up in my mock draft for scoring purposes on mock drafts being a little less settled with who Buffalo was taking. So that was kind of the reasoning why I had the Giants trading. It's just a matter of trying to get points for the Giants getting back into the first round with Dart. And Buffalo was kind of the team I was uncertain on, so that was where I moved them. I struggle. One of the markets that I think is kind of interesting right now is this defensive back market with Jahdae Barron and Will Johnson and all. I have Will Johnson out of my first round. I just struggled to find a place. I considered him there at Arizona. I considered him with Buffalo, with the Rams. It's just hard to slot a guy like him who probably runs close to a 4.6, who possibly has a debilitating knee injury that may make him a one contract player. I just struggled with it. So it was just one of the things that I had to take a stand, and he was one of the guys that dropped out. So that was kind of where I landed. And I think there's some good numbers still on Jahdae Barron to hit in a few areas, but that's really kind of it as far as my mock draft, as far as where I landed.
Connor, where are you at in terms of the corners? Did you end up going Barron over Johnson, or?
Yeah, I think I ended up having Johnson at 17 or 16 to the Cardinals. I heard that they like him, so I just went with that. The Cardinals were kind of a tough team. I think Barron isn't out at 13 with the Dolphins, which, I had Jalen Walker falling a little bit, so I had him kind of going there. But I think Barron is out at 13, 17, and then kind of in the mid-20s, in my opinion. So, yeah, definitely more outs. He's minus 190 to be the first corner drafted. The first defensive back drafted, actually. Sorry. Then Will Johnson plus 380, Starks plus 650, Harrison plus 600, and then Emin Warriors 27-1, who's had like a pretty big fall, honestly, the last couple weeks. Just haven't heard much about him since the combine, since he was awesome. Just because we just don't really know if he's that good of a player, to be honest. That's kind of the problem. Right. So he had his heyday at the shorts and t-shirt Olympics, and then now hasn't done anything since. So I don't know. I wouldn't lay minus 200 on Barron, to be honest. I know Scott didn't have him in the first round, but minus 200 just seems pretty aggressive, especially when you have Malachi Starks, who could go 13th, could go early 20s ahead of Barron. I don't know. I mean, it's all possible.
Barron is, though, I still think I put him 13 to the Dolphins. It seems to be a pretty popular spot. I also went 16 with Johnson, but I also think the Barron range is pretty vast. It's not a market that I want to be jumping into. And yeah, I agree with Scott. Johnson was really hard to mock. And the Cardinals were a hard team to mock too. When I look at that roster, man, they really need some perimeter corner help. That makes a lot of sense. But the Will Johnson pre-draft process has been almost as bad as anyone's, right? In terms of perception heading into the start of the season and where we are now, poorish play, not running, not participating in a bunch of stuff. I understand why there's, the sentiment is what it is, and where it's been trending now. It feels years away from Walter and Charlie locking in at Will Johnson 6 to the Raiders.
Yeah, no, it's
draft time is different.
I DM'd Charlie 3 weeks ago or 2.5 weeks ago. I was asking about the Will Johnson stuff, because he had Will Johnson at 6 for forever, and I was like, "What's the deal?" And he didn't respond to me. And then finally today, 10:45 a.m., I get a response. Yeah, they're not taking Will Johnson, man. Sorry, the thing didn't go well or whatever. I'm like, yeah, thanks, man. 3 weeks late. No one's mocking him at 6 anymore. We all know that. So, so I tried to ask him about anything else. He hasn't answered yet. I'm sure busy guy today, but thought that was funny. I was like, it's a little bit late here because, but the way he answered it made it seem like Will Johnson was in play, and I think that if he had a good pre-draft process, he probably would be in play. But now I think Membu or Banks makes more sense, to be honest.
Yeah, it just did out because they put out pretty high volume amount of mocks, both Charlie and Walter, and they were locked in consistently where no one else was. So it was is there some there that's worth exploring, right? I think parsing through some mocks that you respect is important to try to see if there's a rabbit hole to go down, because you never know what could be there. So let's see what else we got here in the chat here. Here, Nolan is a red flag. Yeah, we touched on some red flags. I don't know if it's because he played for so many schools. I feel like there's some off the field stuff that we've heard there as well. But and there was some prominent mocks that didn't have Nolan in the first round, which is, yesterday was the full Nolan experience, right? You had Nolan going 8 to Carolina, Nolan not in mocks in the first round at all. So it was woo. Where did you end up with him, Scott?
I ended up putting Nolan 16 to the Cardinals. Okay. I kind of went through things, and I think Nolan getting some steam in the top 10 is legitimate. I don't necessarily have a good match for him there in the top 10, but I think some teams are going to like his talent level. I could see him going anywhere from 11 to San Francisco all the way down to 17 with the Bengals. I landed on him there. He had a top 30 visit with the Cardinals. I think the Cardinals could be looking to get some interior pass rush going. So that was kind of where I landed with him.
Yeah, I liked it. I had a hard time with that one too. I ended up going 17 to the Bengals with him as well. Connor, did you end up having Nolan in your first round? Where'd you put him?
Yeah, I had him at 11 to the Niners. I wonder if my guy Lobs tweeted again. Let's see. I haven't looked at him. I don't have like notifications on for him or anything. But he doesn't even follow me back. Which no, tweets name number 1, not name number 2. Tweeting at him right now. Gotta get Lobs on the show.
Dell's asking about Tyler Warren, Scott. We've kind of stated some of these things, but in terms of Tyler Warren of the Saints, anything to expand on there?
Yeah, I just have him going off my board to the Jets. I think the Jets are fully in on really 2 people. I think it's going to be one of the tackles or Warren. And I look at some of the information that came out last year, linking them to Brock Bowers, and it just might have some resentment from maybe not making one of those moves last year. So I just landed on Warren, and some of the information I had Warren listed higher than Armand Membu. And so that was just where I landed. And I think if he's off the board, then the Saints aren't going to have much of a choice to deal with it. So,
yeah, it's a tricky one for sure. Drew says about 3-1 for Tet to go anywhere in the top 10 on FanDuel.
That's probably a better way to play it, to be honest.
Okay.
Do you think so or no?
I mean, look, we're the outside of it though, right? Do we think that there are other outs?
What if they just no, but like what if they stick and pick at 5 and it's not Jeanty and they actually don't even want Jeanty and they want T-Mac?
I mean, that's hot. Then you should have been, a T-Mac rider from the jump.
I'm not a T-Mac rider. I'm just, I'm trying to lay out the different opportunity, like different. I'm still not even sold that the whole Jeanty thing even makes sense, to be honest.
No, I know you're not. Yeah,
I'm very skeptical. I mean, I hope it's the best outcome for my bets at this point, to be honest. But I'm skeptical. So
it's probably safer, right? You get more outs.
One of the bets I made, look, it's a long shot. I parlayed a little bit of Tyler Booker and Tet McMillan top 10 today, right around plus 2,000. So
that's hot,
spicy. Hey, we're here, man. This is a very safe crowd. We are here. I'm just mad at myself for allowing the masses, the mainstream NFL media, and then YouTube bozos to talk me out of the Tet stuff that I've been holding on to today because my bags would be packed already. But we got sprinkles. We're okay. We're gonna be all right. You had a question. Tell me about. Oh, this is 2 Jihad Campbells.
He's referring to my tweet from last night where I said like guys are gonna fall, and I said Jihad Campbell twice. I mean, it was like I don't know, it was like 11 something after the mock. I was like just tired, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna send fire a tweet, and I said Jihad Campbell, Colston Loveland, and Jihad Campbell all fall a bit due to medicals. So the second one was supposed to be Derek Harmon, but thanks, Jeff. Very classic Jeff comment there.
Classic aggregator, Jeff in the chat. Where did you end up with Jihad Campbell?
27 to the Ravens.
Okay, I can get behind that. I have some 25-1 Ravens first pick linebacker. So
wow. I mean, obviously, I think he's awesome. There's a lot of steam for him at 16 now. I don't know if I buy that, but I mean, I think that there's definitely some steam there.
Yeah. I think the steam for Arizona specifically when it comes to Jihad Campbell is that Monty Ossenfort, while he's made moves with trades, he's been one of the GMs that has been a little bit more lenient as far as dealing with players and taking players that maybe have some negative medical red flags. And so that's one of the reasons. I mean, from a talent standpoint, that's probably where Jihad should be. And if you have a GM that's going to overlook that, the Cardinals make a lot of sense.
Yeah. That was one that I'll kick when he goes 16 tonight. That's another one that I'll kick myself because I've been 16 Campbell the entire time. There will be some pretty interesting discourse in Cardinal circles because, again, they have Steve Klein, PTSD with Zaven Collins and Isaiah Simmons with off-ball linebacker selections. This is, I think, a different player, different front office, different decision makers. But I did end up didn't have the slide going too far. I put him at 19 to Tampa Bay, which I think is also an absolute home run selection for them if he is there. So let's see. What odds would you give Milroe involving into a Lamar Allen style prospect versus AR, which that hurts my heart. Still holding out hope for AR. Get another island I'm dying on alone. I don't know. This is not high. Personally,
I would say much more AR than Lamar Allen.
1,000%. We're talking about league MVPs, which I don't think Milroe's parents wouldn't tell you that he's that necessarily. So
is it bad? I think that like a median outcome for him would be kind of like what we just saw from Anthony Richardson last season. Like that would be like maybe 40th percentile, like at least in his second year or whatever. Like I think that's about right. Maybe
Tyler
less.
Huntley is very much in his range of outcomes. So.
There you go, Snoop.
Yeah, I mean he can run. He's a big boy and he can move. Right, like. Yeah. You know, I understand a little bit of the appeal betting on traits.
I think his best bet is for a team to draft him not to be a starter at all. Have some package stuff that he could come in on, get his feet wet throughout the preseason and with some of these packages, and hopefully you start to see something in year 3.
Yeah. This is a tricky one too, right? Del, so I was thinking about this a little bit this morning as someone who's really just trying to get Warren inside the top 10, gets a little tricky, right? So if we do see that there's some sort of Banks Membu combination at 6-7, 8, Warren's in play, long shot. I think you're still probably dealing with, 20-1 plus for Carolina to go tight end or Warren to go to Carolina. I think I have some of that from early in the process. That's a possibility. Now we bring back into the fold the Saints as a possibility, but maybe if the Saints go offensive line and they've locked into the Bookers, Connerlys, Simmons, whoever of the world. And then we have 10, we're thinking that's the trade down spot for Jacksonville. And we've kind of deemed that as maybe a target. Then where's Warren? That could get a little bit tricky. And I've been thinking about that this morning and trying to make sure that I can cover the Warren top 10 bet if that doesn't fall. So any thoughts there, Scott?
Yeah, I think the scenarios that you look at, it really comes down to, let's just say Jags stick at 5 and go ahead and make that pick. Then is Warren a fit for Chicago there, which is who a lot of people have him to. But there's some thought process that Colston Loveland might be a better fit for Ben Johnson if he sticks and picks a tight end at 10. He could fall to 14. I think the Colts have been making some calls this morning trying to move up, and it's rumored to be for a tight end, whether it be Loveland or Warren. So
that's another team that we've heard maybe likes Loveland more than Warren too, which is tricky.
And so it gets a little bit tricky, but what I fall back to throughout this entire process is that Warren has been a player that is universally, it seems like across the league, thought of to be one of these upper tier prospects in this draft after the blue chip guys fall. So I just think he makes a lot of sense to the Jets. I think if the Jets don't take him, they go offensive line, but it was hard for me to get off of him to the Jets.
Yeah. That's why, like you said, when Warren, because I feel like he's in need, he kind of checks the both trenches stuff that we've heard from Gladstone in the front office and the offensive weapon stuff, because he's a really pretty dynamic football player and would be, I think, a great addition here. Jeff has been on this hill when he pops into the chat, dealing with, I think, August of 2024 mock drafts with Siobhan Rivel getting some steam going the first round this morning. We have seen some talk. I know he visited Buffalo, so I don't know that it would be necessarily before that. Maybe the Rams is an option too. Pellicero's mentioned it. And again, this is another prospect that very much was coming into the season deemed to be there. But just, for a number of reasons is not. Scott, make anything of that news?
Yeah, I think I said it probably last week sometime. I heard as far as like analysts that Revel is thought to be like the second best cornerback in this draft had he not been hurt. I think he's a boundary corner, 6'3", runs very, very well. Just hasn't been able to participate in this process due to injury. So not getting to finish, not playing against the highest level of competition, and going through this process, I think there's a lot of teams that like him. Ben Standig said that Washington's done a lot of work and that he's highly thought of as far as going right there at the top end of that second round. I just think the injuries make it difficult for a team to pull the trigger there, especially when you're going to have a lot of these teams that we talked about possibly moving up to get one of the quarterbacks. I think it's more likely for one of these teams in Revel to be more of a secondary option for one of these teams, like a Minnesota. If Minnesota decided to move back out of the first round, I think Minnesota's a team that could very much look at Shavin Revel.
Yep. Could be interesting. Why nobody thinking Giants get Jeanty at 3 and Dart Milrow later? I mean, disaster. I mean, absolute disaster of a move front office wise. That's probably why no one's talking about it.
It would be the ultimate, like, bounce back the other way, like, trying to overcompensate for your past mistakes of like not paying Saquon and then drafting Jeanty at 3 over. I mean, I don't even think Carter's an awesome fit for them, but at least, I mean, he's like a blue chip player. He adds more juice to the pass rush. The whole house is going to be built out of pass rush for the Giants right now, but just not the worst place to be in.
No, I agree. And again, pass rushers, most of these guys, actually, to be honest, like Kayvon Thibodeau is one of the rare ones that plays, close to almost every snap, plays a lot of snaps comparatively.
And they've been talking about possibly trading him. So
I think 1,000% he's on the table to move, right? So because otherwise you keep all 3, he becomes a guy that maybe is better off not playing every down. He becomes more efficient because he's a pretty inefficient, in terms of just pressure rate. He's not really lived up to the hype. So you could see them moving on from him. But again, just a rotation of 3 guys. The Giants have done it before pretty successfully, having a rotation. Really good teams are rotating their defensive ends. So yeah, that's it. I get it. Jeanty's a great player. Positional value does still matter. And again, you have the Giants, a quarterback's going 1. There are 2 layup blue chip prospects in this draft. You take one of those 2 dudes. You do not mess it up and figure it out the rest after that. Like, don't worry about need. Don't worry about already having Burns and Thibodeau. You take Carter and you figure out the rest later.
Totally.
Yeah.
If my tickets aren't going to cash, I always root for chaos, and that would cause the most chaos tonight.
It would be amazing. Yeah,
it'd be so good.
Yeah.
We got one here from Charlie Sinclair too. Shout out Charlie. Realistic that Loveland makes it to 22. That's where I had him in my mock. Where did you guys end up with Loveland in your mock? Colts or somewhere else?
I have him to the Colts.
Yeah.
And based upon the preliminary information that's coming out to like early this morning, there's teams wanting to move up for him. You had a lot of mocks come out. I don't remember who it was, whether it was Schrager or Jeremiah, but had Denver trading up for him. I just don't think he makes it to 22. And if I had to put a percentage on it, I think it's maybe like 20% he gets there.
Yeah. I think it's probably a good number. I think he's gone. And there are enough teams where I think the Rams get heavily involved way before that. If the Rams to the Falcons, right? The Falcons, I think, are a great trade down spot at 15. We've touched on. There's a lot of commonalities between those 2 front offices and probably some good working relationships there. I think if Loveland makes it past the Colts and the Falcons are on the clock at 15, I think the phone rings and it's the Rams trying to get up to get Loveland. So
yeah that makes sense. Also, real quick before we miss it, Steve, where does my guy Bialshal Tuten? Where does he go? He ran a 4.32. He's at 200 pounds. Size, speed freak. No idea where he goes, but definitely a good pick in fantasy. I think like
Washington has shown interest. So
all right, there you go. Second round, third round, probably 4th, somewhere in there. Third round.
It'd be like 3rd to 4th.
Okay, there you go.
So. All right. So Steve, you can tune in late Friday night, early Saturday morning, and see maybe where he goes.
You'll get the notification on his phone. It's a VTech guy. That's why he likes him. So he'll get the notification on his phone. No shot he's watching day 2 or day 3 of the draft.
Let's see here. KC to draft a running back worth the first stab. Obviously, we've seen some Travion Henderson news there. Part of it for me at this point is like it was 15-1 2 days ago, and then 12 for a little while. So 750. I feel like we're losing a little bit of steam. I don't know. It's so hard when you get down to like the 30s, right? Like so many different things can happen. It's a trade out spot, right? So the Chiefs might not even pick tonight. That could be tricky. There's definitely another organization that might have some PTSD from a late 30s running back selection. No one thought CEH was going to be what came of CEH. So it's very easy to say right now that Henderson's a different prospect than CEH because, it was a little surprising, but at the time, you never know. Scott, any thoughts on Henderson? I mean, obviously, I think we all want 3 running backs in the first round. So I didn't mock it, but I'm very much hoping it happens.
Yeah, I struggled. I wanted to kind of slam Henderson in there. I just struggled to really find where I was comfortable. And I just think that's a luxury for Kansas City. That offensive line is what let them down. And I think this running back class is so deep, they'll be able to find other guys that fit that they want to take a swing on later on. Kind
of agree. And they added Elijah Mitchell, who would be healthy for like 4 games, but maybe he gives them, some production in 4 games on that depth chart. So not a spot that I think is a great spot. I really thought, the Commanders were a nice little spot there too. What else we got?
I have a question for you guys. Have you guys looked at the Albright puzzle yet?
I have, and I completely gave up.
What have you looked at it, Noonan, or no?
No, I have not.
So I looked at it, and of course, because I'm a cheater, I just go immediately to the comments and look at for someone else who spent significantly more time than I have looking at it, because I looked at these pictures. I was like, yeah, this means nothing to me. There are comments that I think genuinely make some logical sense towards both Travion Henderson and Omarion Hampton. And I promise that whichever one is selected there will be the answer to what Albright said.
Yes.
Agreed.
It was
without a doubt.
Completely could go either way. So the over and under, now that you have to think about, because he said he's going to have an envelope and he will pull it out live as the pick is made, is does he have 2 envelopes, both in the back pocket?
Oh my
This was
God.
the envelope.
So I mean, to be fair, it is extremely hard to predict the pick anytime out of the top 10. So and non-quarterbacks like Knicks. I mean, no one is probably picking Bo Nix before pick 12. So can understand how you get that right. Pick 20. I mean, that's tough. Omarion Hampton, someone could take Omarion Hampton or Travion Henderson before. I mean, not likely, but it's possible. So I don't know. I understand it's hard. I just think that the game around it is kind of funny. I think it's interesting, especially in this spot where, again, it seems like there's 2 very logical outcomes. Got to put the puzzle into ChatGPT. Honestly, this is probably a good look. Give him a couple options and then see if any of them make the most sense.
Oh boy. Yeah. Look, just get the Denver to take a running back first. Still, I think bettable. Put it out at plus 110. Where are we right now? We can go first position or team props. First position drafted. Where are we at right now? Denver to take a running back first. Been bet out a little bit. Minus 150 DraftKings, minus 160 on FanDuel. So I still am not. I would be very surprised if they were to trade up for Loveland after acquiring Evan Ingram, or it being a trade up or selecting one of the receivers. Would surprise me, but hey, here we are. Hopefully Albright has all that covered in for the big reveal. Maybe that the puzzle is is Colston Loveland and we are just all misinterpreting it. So I mean, I would love to see Henderson go 20, because I think maybe it puts Pittsburgh pretty live to take Hampton at 21. I'd be very interested to see what happens with what would happen there. So, I think it's going to get crazy tonight, to be honest. I think it's going to be a little more wild than we think coming in here. 49ers D-line, still just minus 125. The offensive line still very much in play there too. I've thought corner was in play, but maybe not with what we've seen from Will Johnson, because it feels like that would have been Will Johnson more than Barron. Any thoughts there? I think we all went defensive line for the Niners. Any thoughts there, Scott?
Yeah, I think you just look at like some of the comments that you had come out of Shanahan, and I think he wholeheartedly believes that he can rebuild the offensive line with a second round type of talent. I think you have Robert Saleh coming back, and you look at the free agency losses that they've had, and I think it's firmly going to be defense.
The case for this is it's unique. So the one place that skill really, I mean, skill matters for all positions, but in terms of how, like, again, I'm not teaching anyone anything they don't know here, but football is played. I think edge rusher specifically is the one spot where you're going to go one-on-one a lot of times consistently, where your skill set really matters. It's easier to build through the offensive line a little bit later at times. Obviously, love to have that, top 10 anchor left tackle, but you're building a system and kind of a community at the offensive line position. Whereas, if you have a chance to take a blue chip talent, top tier talent at edge, that dude has to really kind of beat his man to be successful, more like any other guy, right? You're going to chip here, you're going to pass him off to the guard. Like there's lots of different ways where, kind of the guys around you matter a little bit more. If you get a shot to take a Jalen Walker that falls, or, Walter Nolan or someone like that has to go up straight up and beat someone every snap that he's on the field. I think that's why you see that mentality, and you're like, hey, I can add someone in day 2 along the offensive line. I have some other pieces there can solidify, and we can coach them up. They could fit better versus, passing on some really top elite tier talent along the defensive line. Milroe under 38.5 plus 120. It gets so tricky at the top of the first half of the draft, or the second round. So I try to stay clear of that until we hear anything concrete. Do you guys have any leans there, or any thoughts on under 38.5?
It almost feels like he's just the leftover at this point in time. I think the Saints are in on Shug, even with all the Dart stuff that's coming out. I think the Giants are in on Dart, and I think Shedeur comes down to whether it's Cleveland or Pittsburgh. I tend to not think it's going to be Pittsburgh, but I don't see that under 38. There's so many teams there that have to be in on Milroe. I think Milroe's further off from playing, so like a team like the Giants, I don't think he really fits where they're at, unless they were to move down or completely miss out. So it's just hard for me to feel comfortable playing that at all.
Yeah, I'd lean over. No, I'd lean over. It's like if a guy doesn't go in like the like late first, traditionally there aren't that many quarterbacks taking the top of the second, from my understanding. So yeah. And then Brian also brought up, I played Shedeur over 21.5 plus 140 yesterday. I mean, I think it's still good as mine here.
Yeah, I think that price is still close to out there, if that's not the right price. And I lean that way too. I did not have him going to Pittsburgh. That's a Pittsburgh number, basically, right? That's it. Do the Steelers take him? It's kind of it.
Yeah,
it's kind of it.
Interesting thing here. While we're on air, Breece Hall potentially is like there's some issues there. Like, he tweeted out a little peace sign, and then I think Underdog tweeted that like he's, I don't know, they're trying to trade him maybe or something like that, or like potential availability for trade has increased within the last week and a half from Josina Anderson. I don't know. I mean, Ashton Jeanty now available at 7th too, like Jets straight up to 5 to take him. No, I don't think that's a possibility, but I think that they could be in play in the second round, maybe, for a running back. One of those, like, I don't know, Caleb Johnson-ish, if Henderson falls, something like that, I think could be interesting.
And they were a team that I heard was interested in Henderson. I just don't think he makes it to him in the second round.
Yeah.
Breece Hall's really good. I don't know. Bad teams find ways to stay bad. It'd be very interesting. Yeah, I don't know that it affects the Jets draft, especially in round 1. To Josh's question here, like not an impact in my opinion. Let's see. You guys got anything else?
Did you guys all mock Marion Hampton to the Broncos? I know we kind of touched on it because there's a team to draft Hampton. Broncos are minus 110, but like after that, it's like Steelers plus 850, Commanders 9-1, Vikings 12-1, Bears, Chargers, Chiefs, Cowboys. I mean, there's some pretty long prices if you want to like go down that like road of like if it doesn't go 20, like where does he go? There's definitely some value there. I guess I'm just personally of the belief that he's going to go 20 still.
Yeah.
I
I think he's going to go 20. If he doesn't go 20, I tend to think the team that would be very interested would be Washington.
Okay.
I think Washington could be in on both Hampton and Henderson. And some of the mocks that had Henderson going to 20 to the Denver had Hampton going to Washington. So I think it does make sense.
Yeah. I think Pittsburgh is also becomes very viable. I know they had him in. They met with all of them. Pittsburgh's like, oh, that they take who they meet, and then you go and look at who they met with. They met with everyone that you would think would possibly go in that range. It's not really easy to hone in on. Like Pittsburgh met with this guy and didn't meet with this guy. Like Pittsburgh did their homework. They brought everyone in, so it made it a little bit harder to kind of parse through there. So interior defensive line makes a lot of sense. They pass on the quarterback, but I think if Hampton is there, that could very, very, very much be the play. Second off the board would be my lean to the question here in the chat from Evan. We put him there over Henderson, who I think is maybe a little bit trickier to find a home for. But again, there's conglomerate of Broncos backers that think that he's the play there too. So
I have a question. What do you think Evan does for a living? Is he a real estate agent, an accountant? That looks real estate to me.
Nice for finance. Let's see.
Evan will probably let us know.
Evan, what do you do for a living? Respond in the chat.
Yeah,
some kind of business professional.
Yeah, you have a much sharper picture than I've ever taken in my life, sir.
Yeah. You just throw up Jeff's picture comparatively.
Yeah, look at it.
Look at this bozo. It's not even far off from what he actually looks like.
Is that a real shot right there, like a live shot of Jeff?
Yeah, that's Jeff. Listen to the. We're not going to talk about kickers. We're going to talk about kickers on the show. No teeth. So,
Evan, all in good fun. All in good fun.
Yeah, no, you look good, dude. That's a compliment. Look at us. Like two of the three of us aren't even wearing pants.
Yeah,
you never even know. So
you got to figure out which two.
Yeah,
I've got my I survived the Snyder era shirt.
It's a good shirt.
The first draft, I get to be happy for a little bit in 20 plus years.
Yeah. If Jacksonville makes a trade with Chicago, gets one of those 2 extra seconds, Hampton to the Jags, maybe. They seem to. This is why the Jags to take Jeanty doesn't track for me still. I mean, I understand that Jeanty is a different prospect for sure, but I don't know. You got Bigsby, you got Etienne prioritizing. That makes a lot of sense. Definitely Scott and Noonan paintless -140. I'd comfortably lay the juice. I'd lay it. Get that winner in there. Free roll some of your stuff for later.
Ryan's comment is so good, by the way.
What's that?
I noticed this earlier
down here.
It's like the what is it? What do they call that? Like the Cajun drawl,
Yeah.
It's so good.
So look, down here it's Jeanty is what it is.
Yeah, at first when we first started, months ago, I thought we were talking about a different player at first. When we started.
I struggle trying to say Jeanty.
Yeah.
So it's a struggle for me down here.
I like it. It keeps it fresh, but yeah, I used to get harassed for my New England accent. I've tried to work really hard to diminish it and stay away from it, but I like that you lean into it a little bit.
We might talk a little funny down here, but we know how to cook, so
yeah, nothing wrong with that. Take that trade every day. Someone asked a question that I forgot to star that I'm trying to find. Is Simmons to New Orleans worth a sprinkle? I sprinkled it for the same reasons that we would sprinkle Connerly. Look, I mean, and I told you guys when I did it too, when the Connerly stuff started to be, coming out. This is a guy that every time someone talks about him, it's, if he was healthy, he's a top 10 pick in the draft. Right. So if the Saints are finally going, hey, we can't keep kicking the can down the road from a salary standpoint and salary cap. We're trying to kind of step back, have some maybe big picture thought team building. Why don't we get a little bit of buy-in, get this guy into the building, see if we can get healthy, and all of a sudden we have a left tackle of the future. that seems to make a lot of sense to me. So I did take some Simmons. You know, again, it's not something I would advise. Just spraying the board on Saints offensive lineman, basically, is what we're trying to do.
So that is 100 to 1. I actually checked this one before I said it. That is that one is
like it's a bad
100
CLV because I got a 60 there. I got a 60.
Oh man, that's funny.
Yeah. So yes, the answer is yes. 100 to 1. I would sprinkle $10. What's $10? I mean, I don't know. In this economy, yeah, I don't know. All right, gentlemen, we're at the hour mark. We've done it.
Yeah.
We've made it. Bets are in. Maybe we'll bet some more. Try to push some stuff out in the Discord if we have anything official. And apologize, like we don't push everything in through the Discord, partially because betting the draft is such a unique event. I don't expect anyone to go on the betting journey that I am and splashing, all these different things. Anything we feel really concrete about and feel aligned with, we've tried to push out. We'll continue to still do that. Massive appreciation and thank you to all of you in the chat today, in the chat on any of the shows. This is, again, one of our favorite things to do. Love being able to come in and talk ball with Scott and Connor often. Scott is fantastic at this. It's a gift for us to have his brain through this process, and we appreciate all the support through watching the shows, jumping in the chat. So again, thank you to all of you. Subscribe again for bets on the YouTube channel. Move the line where we listen to podcasts. We'll be back again to actually start talking the outcome of the draft and the fallout in terms of how this starts to impact on the field play, betting into the futures market. We'll probably get the schedule in less than a month too. We'll start to be able to have a better understanding on, how to price the win totals and have all those discussions here soon. So we appreciate all you guys very much. For Scott and Connor, I'm Ryan. We'll see you all next time. Good luck, everybody.